Hello and welcome to NEET Prep Course. So today we'll be doing another chapter, Plant Kingdom. In the previous chapter, we looked at the broad classification of living organism under the system proposed by Whittaker in 1969, wherein he suggested the five-kingdom classification, which was Monera, that is unicellular prokaryotes, Protista, unicellular eukaryotes, fungi, multicellular eukaryotic organisms, who had chitin as their cell wall and were majorly saprophytes. Then plantae, which were multicellular eukaryotes, but all of them had a cell wall made up of cellulose and they were photosynthetic in nature. And animalia, which were multicellular eukaryotes, but they were completely heterotrophic. In this chapter and did not have any cell wall. So in this chapter we will deal with further classification within kingdom Plantae. Kingdom Plantae is also popularly known as plant kingdom. We must stress here that our understanding of the plant kingdom has changed over time. Fungi and members of Monera and Protista having cell walls have now been excluded from Plantae, though earlier classifications placed them in the same kingdom. So fungi and members of Monera and Protista, which had cell wall, now have been excluded in Plantae, but earlier during two-kingdom classification of Carolus lineus, they were placed in the same kingdom. So the cyanobacteria, which is now referred to as blue-green algae, they are not algae anymore. So in this chapter we will describe algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperm and angiosperm, which are placed under plant kingdom or Plantae. Let us look at classification within angiosperms to understand some of the concerns that influence the classification system. The earliest system of classification used only gross morphological characters such as habit, color, number, shape of leaves, etc. And was based only on vegetative characters or on the androecium structure, which was given by Linnaeus, and therefore such systems were called as artificial systems. Why? Because they separated closely related species on the basis of morphological characters or few characteristics. Also, the artificial system gave equal weightage to vegetative and sexual characters, which was not acceptable, since we know that vegetative characters are more easily affected by environment. So therefore the natural system of classification was developed by Bentham and Hooker, which was based on natural affinities among the organism, and they considered not only the external features but also the internal features such as ultrastructure, anatomy, embryology, phytochemistry. Such a classification of flowering plants was given by George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker. So at present, phylogenetic classification system, that is based on evolutionary relationships between various organisms, are acceptable. This assumes that organisms belonging to the same taxa have a common ancestor. We now use information from many other sources too to help resolve difficulties in classification. These become more important when there is no supporting fossil evidence. So at present we have phylogenetic classification system, which is a classification system which is based on evolutionary relationship between the various organisms, and this phylogenetic classification system assumes that organisms belonging to same taxa, that is same taxon or category, have a common ancestor. We now use information from many other sources too to resolve difficulties in classification. Why? Because they become important when there is no supporting fossil evidence. For example, numerical taxonomy, cytotaxonomy and chemotaxonomy. Numerical taxonomy in this using computers based on observable characters, number and codes are assigned to all the characters, and then data is processed in such a way each character is given equal importance, and at the same time hundreds of characters are considered. So this happens through the computer, and number and codes are given to the characters, and at a time they are assigned to all the characters, and the data is processed, and at a time hundreds of characters can be considered. Then cytotaxonomy, based on the cytological information such as your chromosome number, structure, behavior, etc. And what is chemotaxonomy? That is chemical constituents of the plant to resolve confusion. The chemotaxonomy is chemical constituents of the plant. Cytotaxonomy is based on cytological information such as chromosome number, structure and behavior. Algae are chlorophyll bearing, simple, thalloid and autotrophic, largely aquatic, both freshwater and marine organism. They occur in a variety of other habitat too, such as in moist stone, soil and wood. So algae are chlorophyll bearing. They are simple thalloid, that is thallus, undifferentiated body. They are autotrophic, that is they make their own food, and they are largely aquatic, both freshwater and marine organisms. They occur in a variety of other habitats too apart from aquatic habitat, example moist stones, soil and wood. Some of them also occur in association with fungi such as lichen and on sloth bear. So algae also grows on sloth bear, which is the slowest, whose movements are the slowest animal, and they also occur with fungi, lichen. Then they form the size of that is the form and size of algae is highly variable, ranging from colonial forms like volvox, filamentous forms like Olothrix and Spirogyra. So colonial form is volvox. Colonial is volvox, and volvox is also oogamous, I guess. Oogamous or anisogamous? Yeah, volvox and fucus both are oogamous. Olothrix and Spirogyra, both of them are isogamous. But in Olothrix, the gametes are motile, and in Spirogyra, they are non-motile. Okay, so colonial, volvox, filamentous, Olothrix, and Spirogyra. A few of the marine forms, such as kelps, form massive plant bodies. Now the algae reproduce by vegetative, asexual and sexual methods. Vegetative reproduction in algae is by fragmentation. Each fragment develops into a thallus. Asexual reproduction is by the production of different types of spores. The most common is zoospore, which is the asexual spore. Uh, Zoospores are the most common spores in algae. Then they can be flagellated or motile. On germination give rise to new plants. Then sexual reproduction takes place by the fusion of two gametes. These gametes can either be motile, for example in Olothrix, flagellated and similar in size. So isogamous example is Olothrix and Spirogyra. Out of this, Olothrix has motile gametes, Spirogyra has non-motile gametes. Then anisogamous is Eudorina. Anisogamous is Eudorina. And oogamous is Fucus and Volvox. Okay, so colonial, volvox, filamentous, Spirogyra and Olothrix. That is algae, they reproduce by vegetative, asexual and sexual method. Vegetative reproduction occurs by fragmentation. You know that is in Spirogyra, it breaks down into fragments, and then each fragment develops into new thallus or organism. Then asexual reproduction occurs by spores, asexual spores. The most common asexual spores in algae is zoospores. Then they are flagellated, motile, and on germination they give rise to new plants. Okay, so zoospores are motile. Zoospores are flagellated and motile. Zoospores are flagellated, that is motile, and they give rise to new plants on germination. Then sexual reproduction takes place through the fusion of two gametes, and these gametes can be similar in size and flagellated motile as in Olothrix, or they can be similar in size but non-motile as in Spirogyra. So basically such reproduction is called as isogamous. Why? Because both the two gametes are similar in size. Then fusion of two gametes which are dissimilar in size occurs in Eudorina, and it is called as an isogamous. Fusion between one large non-motile or static female gamete and a small motile male gamete is called as oogamous. Example is volvox and fucus. Volvox is a colonial algae, whereas Eulothrix and Spirogyra are filamentous. Green algae, brown algae, red algae. Later. Algae are useful to man in a variety of ways. What is the economic importance? Economic importance of algae. At least half of the total carbon dioxide fixation on Earth is carried out by algae through photosynthesis. So basically, they have a very huge role in providing oxygen to organisms to breathe, respire, and live or survive. Being photosynthetic, they increase the level of dissolved oxygen in their immediate environment. So half of the total carbon dioxide fixation on Earth is carried out by algae through photosynthesis, and they also increase the level of dissolved oxygen in our immediate environment because they are photosynthetic. They are of paramount importance as primary producers of energy-rich compound which form the basis of food cycles of all aquatic animals. They are of paramount importance. Why? Because as primary producers of energy-rich compounds, they form the basis of food cycle of all aquatic animals. So just like grasses are the primary food producers or the basis of all the herbivores, similarly in aquatic animals, the algae are paramount importance as primary producers of energy-rich compounds, and they form the basis of food cycle in all aquatic animals. Many species of this is brown algae, Porphyra, Laminaria, and Sargassum. They are among the 70 species of marine algae which are used as food. And chlorella, and spirulina. Chlorella and spirulina are used by space travelers, are unicellular and they are used by space travelers. And among the species, many species of 70 species of marine algae which can be used as food. There is Porphyra, Laminaria, and Sargassum. Then certain marine brown and red algae produce large amounts of hydrocolloids. That is, what are hydrocolloids? They are water holding substances. For example, algin, which is a brown algae, and carrageen, which is a red algae. Then they are used commercially. So there are a lot of brown and red algae which help in, that is brown algae Phaeophyce, red algae Rhodophyce, which help in holding water. That is, they are used in water holding substances and they produce large amount of hydrocolloid, which are basically water holding substances. What are those hydrocolloids? Algin, which is a brown algae, and carrageen, which is a red algae, and they are used commercially. Agar Agar is one of the commercial products which is obtained from Gelidium and Gracilaria, and it is used to grow microbes in it, that is in petri dish for culture, as well as in preparation of ice cream and jellies. Chlorella is a unicellular alga rich in proteins, and it is used as a food supplement even by space travelers. The algae are divided into three main classes: Chlorophyce, green algae; Phaeophyce, brown algae; and Rhodophyce, red algae. What are the economic importances of algae? That is, one half of the total carbon dioxide fixation on an Earth is carried out by algae via photosynthesis or through photosynthesis. So naturally, that is a huge part of our dissolved level of dissolved oxygen in our immediate environment is that is made or produced by through photosynthesis by algae. Then algae are of paramount importance as they are the primary producer of energy-rich compound, which and they form the basis of food cycle in all the aquatic animals. And there are many species among the 70 species of edible algae. Example: Laminaria, Porphyra, and Sargassum, which can be consumed by us, which is consumed by us and used as food. And there are certain marine brown and red algae which have huge amount of which are basically produce large amounts of hydrocolloids. What are hydrocolloids? They are water holding substances. Example is algin, which is a brown algae, and carrageen, which is a red algae, and they are used commercially. Agar is one of the commercial products which is obtained from Gelidium and Gracilaria. It is used to grow microbes in a petri dish for cultures, as well as used to make ice cream and jellies. Chlorella is a unicellular alga which is rich in proteins. Chlorella is rich in proteins and Spirulina is a bacteria, by the way. Chlorella is a unicellular alga which is rich in proteins, and it is used as food supplement even by space travelers. Algae are divided into main three classes: chlorophyceae green algae, phaeophyceae brown algae, and rhodophyceae red algae. Chlorophyceae, that is the members of chlorophyceae, are called as green algae. The main plant body of chlorophyceae is unicellular, colonial, or it can be filamentous, and they are usually grass green. Why? Because of the dominance of the pigment chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. So they have chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B pigment, because of which they are largely green in color. The pigments are localized in definite chloroplast. Chloroplast may be discoid, plate-like, reticulate, cup-shaped, spiral, or ribbon-shaped in different species. Most of the members have one or more storage bodies. What are they called? They are called as pyrenoids, which are located in the chloroplast. These pyrenoids, they contain protein besides starch. That is, along with starch, they also contain protein. Some algae may store food in the form of oil droplets. Green algae usually have a rigid cell wall made up of an inner layer of cellulose and outer layer of pectose. So green algae or chlorophyceae have a very rigid cell wall which is made up of an inner layer of cellulose and outer layer of pectose. Vegetative reproduction usually takes place by fragmentation or by the formation of different types of spores. Asexual reproduction is by flagellated spores produced in zoosporangia. Then sexual reproduction shows a considerable variation in the type of formation of sex cells, and it may be isogamous, anisogamous, or oogamous. Commonly found green algae are Chlamydomonas, Volvox, Ulothrix, Pyrogyra, and Chara. So, Spirogyra is isogamous, non-motile. Ulothrix is isogamous, motile gametes. Then Volvox is oogamous. Then Chara is also oogamous. Filamentous, again here another example which we can write is Cladophora. Cladophora is also filamentous like Ulothrix and Spirogyra. And Cladophora is also isogamous and motile. Chlamydomonas is also isogamous and has motile gametes. Then Eudorina, another is Eudorina, and Eudorina is anisogamous. Chara is monoecious. So chlorophyceae, members of chlorophyceae are commonly called as green algae. Their plant body is unicellular, can be unicellular, colonial, or filamentous. They are usually grass green. Why? Because of the dominance of pigment chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. Pigments are localized in definite chloroplast. Chloroplast can be discoid or plate-like or cup-shaped or reticulate or spiral or ribbon-shaped. Ribbon-shaped is in Spirogyra. Then most of the members have one or more storage bodies which are called as pyrenoids. So pyrenoids contain starch, but besides starch they also contain protein. And these pyrenoids or storage bodies are located inside chloroplast. In the chloroplast, so pyrenoids are located in the chloroplast, and besides starch they also contain protein. Some algae may store the food in the form of oil droplets. Green algae have a very rigid cell wall. The inner layer of cell wall is made up of cellulose and the outer layer of cell wall is made up of pectose. Vegetative reproduction generally takes place by fragmentation or by formation of different types of spores. Asexual reproduction takes place by the formation of zoospore, which are produced in zoosporangia, and zoospores are motile, that is flagellated. Sexual reproduction shows a considerable variation. It can be either isogamous, that is fusion of gametes between that is fusion of gametes, and the gametes are similar in size, or it can be an isogamous, that is gametes are different in size, or it can be oogamous, that is the female is non-motile and large, whereas the male gamete is small and motile. Some commonly found green algae are Chlamydomonas. Chlamydomonas are isogamous and they are motile. Volvox, oogamous, Ulothrix. Volvox is colonial, whereas Ulothrix, Chlamydomonas, Cladophora, not Chlamydomonas, Chlamydomonas is unicellular, Chlorella is also unicellular, Ulothrix, um, Ulothrix, Pyrogyra and Cladophora, they are all filamentous algae. Out of this, all three of them are isogamous, but Ulothrix and Spirogyra are motile. Isogamous, whereas Spirogyra is isogamous but non-motile gametes. Then Chara, monoecious. Then Phaeophyce or red algae. Brown algae. Members of Phaeophyce or brown algae are primarily found in marine habitats. They show great variation in size and form. They range from simple branched to filamentous forms, ectocarpus, to profusely branched, such as kelps. They may reach a height of 100 meters. I think it happens in kelps. Then they possess chlorophyll A, C, carotenoids, and xanthophylls. What are the pigments in Phaeophyce? That is chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, carotenoids, and xanthophylls. They vary in color from olive green to various shades of brown depending upon the amount of xanthophyll pigment. That is, why are they brown in color? Because fucoxanthin is present in them. Fucoxanthin. Then food in brown algae or Phaeophyce is stored in complex carbohydrates, which may be in the form of laminarin or mannitol. The vegetative cells have cellulosic wall, which is usually covered on the outside by gelatinous coat of algin. The protoplast contains, in addition to plastid, a centrally located vacuole and nucleus. Plant body is usually attached to substratum by a holdfast. It has a stalk, the stipe, and leaf-like photosynthetic organ frond. Vegetative reproduction takes place by fragmentation. Asexual reproduction in most brown algae is by biflagellate zoospore, what are that are pear-shaped and have two unequal laterally attached flagella. Sexual reproduction can be isogamous and isogamous or oogamous. Union of gametes may take place in water or within the oogonium, that is oogamous species. The gametes are pyriform, pear-shaped, and bear two laterally attached flagella, that is they are biflagellate. Common forms are ectocarpus, dictyota, laminaria, sargassum, and fucus. Phaeophyce, members of Phaeophyce are called as brown algae. They are primarily marine. Uh, then that is, they are found in marine habitats. They show great variation in size and form. They can range from being simple and branched to filamentous, example ectocarpus, to profusely branched, example kelps. Their height can go up to 100 meters. Then they mainly possess, that is pigment chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, carotenoid, and xanthophylls. Their color may vary from olive green to shades of brown depending upon the amount of xanthophylls pigment present. Why are they brown in color or called as brown algae or Phaeophyce? This is because of the xanthophyll pigment fucoxanthin, which is present in them. Food in Phaeophyce or brown algae is stored as complex carbohydrates, which can be in the form of laminarin or mannitol. Then vegetative cells have a cellulosic wall. The vegetative cells have a cellulosic wall, which is usually covered on the outside by a gelatinous coating of algin. Then the protoplast contains, in addition to plastid, a centrally located vacuole and a nucleus. So the protoplast contains, in addition to plastid, a centrally located vacuole and nucleus. The plant body is usually attached to substratum by a holdfast. That is by a holdfast. Then it has a stalk which is called as stipe, holdfast, stipe, and a leaf-like photosynthetic organ that is frond. Holdfast, stipe, and frond. Vegetative reproduction takes place by fragmentation. Asexual reproduction in most brown algae is by the formation of zoospores, which are biflagellated uh, and pear-shaped and have two unequal laterally attached flagella. Then sexual reproduction can be isogamous, and isogamous are oogamous. The union of gametes can take place in water or in the oogonium in the oogamous type. Then gametes are pyriform, that is pear-shaped, and they bear two laterally attached flagella which are not similar. Gametes are pyriform, pear-shaped. Common forms are ectocarpus, dictyota, laminaria, sargassum, and fucus. Ectocarpus, dictyota, laminaria, sargassum, and fucus. Rhodophyceae. The members of Rhodophyceae are commonly called as red algae. Why? Because of the predominance of the red pigment or phycoerythrin in their body. Majority of the red algae are marine with greater concentrations found in the warmer areas. They are both in well-lighted region close to the surface of water and also at great depths in the ocean where relatively little light penetrates. The red thalli of most of the red algae are multicellular. Some of them have complex body organization. The food is stored as Floridian starch, which is very similar to amylopectin and glycogen in structure. Red algae reproduce vegetatively by fragmentation and asexually by non-motile spores. Non-motile spores, aplanospores, I guess. And sexually by non-motile gametes. Sexual reproduction is oogamous and accompanied by complex post-fertilization event. Common members are Polysiphonia, Porphyra, Gracilaria, and Gelidium. Bryophytes. Bryophytes include various mosses and liverworts. They include mosses and liverworts that are found commonly growing in moist shaded areas in the hills. First, let's see the structure. So first is green algae, volvox, and holothrics. So this is volvox colonial, you can see, and this is holothrics filamentous. Then secondly, brown algae, laminaria, and fucus, and dictyota. Laminaria, so this is laminaria, this is fucus, and this is dictyota. They see holdfast, which is the substratum, attached to substratum, then stipe, stalk, frond, leaf-like structure. Similarly, holdfast, midrib, frond, air bladder, stipe, frond. So this is volvox, this is the structure of volvox, which is colonial. This is the structure of holothrics, which is filamentous. This is the structure of laminaria. This is the structure of fucus. This is the structure of dictyota. Then here we have Porphyra and Polysiphonia. Porphyra and Polysiphonia. Frond, main axis, branches. Okay. So this is volvox. It is colonial, daughter colony, parent colony. Okay. Then this is holothrics. This is laminaria, single leaf like. You have to remember this three. This is fucus. Then this banyan tree type branch type is dictyota. And this is Porphyra. This is Polysiphonia, having branches and main axis Polysiphonia. This is coral-like type as Porphyra. Then coming to the table, Chlorophyceae are called as green algae. Major pigment, they have chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. They store food in the form of starch as well as protein. Besides starch, protein also, no? Then cell wall is made up of cellulose. Flagellar number and position of insertion, that is 2 to 8 flagella. Both are equal in size and apically they are joined. Habitat, they can be found in fresh water, brackish water and salt water. Then Phaeophyceae, also called as brown algae. Major pigment is xanthophylls. In xanthophylls, fucoxanthin and chlorophyll A and C and carotenoids. Then stored food is laminarin and mannitol. Then cell wall is made up of cellulose and outer gelatinous sheet, that is algin. Over here cell wall is made up of cellulose and pectose. Inner is cellulose, outer is pectose. Then flagellar number, that is in Phaeophyceae we have 2 flagella, that is biflagellate, and they are unequal and they are laterally attached. Habitat, again fresh water, which is rare brackish water and salt water. Then Rhodophyceae, also called as red algae, common name red algae. Major pigments found is R-phycoerythrin and chlorophyll A and D. So chlorophyll, where is chlorophyll A and D written here? It's not, okay, here we have to remember. So chlorophyll A and D and phycoerythrin. Then stored food is in the form of Floridian starch. Cellulose is made up of, cell wall is made up of cellulose, pectin and polysulfate esters. Flagellar number, flagella and all is absent over here. That is non-motile spores asexually are present, and also sexually also non-motile gametes are there. Fresh water some, then brackish water, then salt water most. Okay. Now let's come to bryophytes. Bryophytes are also called as amphibians of plant kingdom. Why are bryophytes called as amphibians of plant kingdom? Because these plants can live in the soil, but they are dependent on water for sexual reproduction. They usually occur in damp, humid and shaded localities. They play a very important role in plant succession on bare rocks or soil. Plant body of bryophytes is more differentiated than that of algae. It is thallus-like and prostrate or erect. It is attached to the substratum by unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. That is, the bryophytes lack true roots, stem or leaves. They may possess root-like, leaf-like or stem-like structures. Plant body of bryophytes is more differentiated than that of algae. It is thallus-like and prostrate or erect and attached to substratum by unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. They lack true root, stem and leaf, but they have root-like, stem-like and leaf-like structures. The main plant body of bryophyte is haploid. So the main plant body of bryophyte is haploid. It produces gametes, hence it is called as gametophyte. Sex organ in bryophytes are multicellular. Male sex organ is antheridium and produces biflagellate antherozoid. Female sex organ is archegonium. Flask shape, produces single egg. Okay, so bryophytes are called as amphibians of plant kingdom. Why? Because they live on the land, but they require water for sexual reproduction. Then that is, they usually occur in damp, humid and shaded localities. They play an important role in plant succession on bare rocks or soil. They play an important role on in plant succession on bare rocks and soil. Then the plant bodies are more differentiated than algae, and it is thallus-like, prostate or erect, and it is attached to the substratum by either unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. Now they lack true roots, leaves and stem, but they have root-like, leaf-like and stem-like structures. Then the main plant body of bryophyte is haploid. So the main plant body of algae as well as bryophyte is haploid, whereas for pteridophyte, gymnosperm and angiosperm, it is diploid. But in and algae is the only one in which zygotic meiosis takes place. So let's write it down. So basically what happens is we have gametophyte, which is haploid. Then this gametophyte, it forms gametes, which are also haploid. Then these gametes, they fuse to form a zygote, which is diploid. Then this zygote develops to form a sporophyte, which is also diploid. Then this sporophyte undergoes meiosis to form spores, which are haploid, and then these spores, they give rise to gametophyte. So this is what basically happens. Okay, and here mitosis is there. This is what basically happens, but in algae, from zygote, there is no sporophyte stage. Directly, spores are formed. So sporophyte is nothing but zygote only. Like this stage is not present in algae. It's directly so zygote is very short-lived, and diploid structure is very short-lived. So when we say dominant gametophyte or dominant sporophyte, we say that something is dominant when firstly it is green in color, and it lasts in the plant cycle for much longer time, and that is the dependent structure. That is, you can see it, you can characterize it. That is, for much longer time it will be there. Whereas in algae, for much longer gametophyte is there, that is, which is a haploid structure. So their main plant body is only haploid. Their main plant body is haploid. Main plant body is haploid. And since they do not have an actual sporophyte stage, because from after zygote is formed, in all other sporophyte is there, whereas in this case zygote directly it undergoes meiosis. Meiosis occurs in zygote itself and spores are formed, therefore it is called as zygotic meiosis. Zygotic meiosis. Zygotic meiosis. Okay. Whereas in all other in bryophytes also zygotic mitosis takes place. Not zygotic meiosis, zygotic mitosis. Now bryophytes include mosses and liverworts, and they are found in shaded areas in the hills. Then bryophytes are also called as amphibians of plant kingdom. Why? Because they can live in that is survive in soil, but they need water when it comes to sexual reproduction. Then they usually occur in damp, humid and shaded localities. They play a very important role in plant succession on rocks or bare rocks or soil. Then the plant body of bryophytes is obviously more differentiated than that of algae. They lack true root, stem or leaf, but they have root-like, stem-like and leaf-like structures. The thallus is prostrate or erect, and it is attached to the substratum by either unicellular or multicellular rhizoid. So in Phaeophyce, we saw that the substratum, that is holdfast, attached to the substratum by holdfast, then stalk or stipe, and leaf or frond. Whereas now over here uh, it is more differentiated, so all those primitive structures are not there in bryophytes like they were there in algae. But over here the main thallus is attached to the soil, that is holdfast with the help of not holdfast, substratum with the help of unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. Then it produces gametes, hence it is called as gametophyte. So the main plant body of bryophyte is also haploid. Main plant body of algae was also haploid. In main plant body of bryophyte is also haploid. It produces gametes, hence it is called as gametophyte. So over here also the gametophyte stage, which is here also the gametophyte stage. This is the dominant gametophyte. And both of them, that is algae and bryophyte, show haplontic cycle. Now it produces gametes, hence it is called as gametophyte. The sex organs in bryophytes are multicellular. So the sex organs in bryophytes are multicellular. The male sex organ is called as antheridium, and they produce biflagellate antherozoid. Female sex organ is archegonium. It is flask shaped and produces a single egg. Now the antherozoids are released into the water. So biflagellate antherozoids are released in the water, and a flask shaped and both of them are, that is, produces a single egg. Antheridium, this is antheridium, produces antherozoids, and here the archegonium, flask shaped, it produces single egg. The antherozoids are released into the water where they come in contact with archegonium. Antherozoid fuses with the egg to produce zygotes. Zygotes do not undergo reduction division. Hmm. Antherozoids are released into water where they come in contact with archegonium. Antherozoid fuses with the egg to produce zygote. Zygote do not undergo reduction division immediately. They produce multicellular body called as a sporophyte. Sporophyte is not free living but attached to the photosynthetic gametophyte, and it derives nourishment from it. Some cells of the sporophyte undergo reduction division or meiosis to produce haploid spores, and these spores germinate to produce gametophyte. So antherozoids are released into water where they come in contact with archegonium. An antherozoid fuses with the egg to produce the zygote. Now these zygote do not undergo reduction division immediately. They produce a multicellular body called sporophyte. So I had told you now the gametophyte, it released gametes, and these were also haploid. Then these gametes, they fused and they formed zygote, which was diploid. Now in algae, the zygote directly underwent meiosis, and it formed, that is by zygotic meiosis, it formed spores. In this case, the zygote does not undergo meiosis right away, rather it undergoes mitosis and it forms a sporophyte, which is also diploid. produces a multicellular body called sporophyte. The sporophyte is not free living, but it is attached to the photosynthetic gametophyte. But still over here, the haploid body, even though sporophyte is formed the zygote is not that much short-lived, still why uh, the haploid body is haploid, matlab, the dominant plant body is haploid and haplontic life cycle is taking place. This is because the sporophyte is not free living or independent. That is, the sporophyte is dependent on gametophyte. This is very important. So the sporophyte is dependent on gametophyte. Sporophyte is not free living but attached to the photosynthetic gametophyte which derives nourishment from it. So, sorry, not for it, from it. Sporophyte is dependent on gametophyte and gametophyte takes nourishment from it. Nourishment from it or sporophyte. Okay, some of the cells of sporophyte undergo reduction, division or meiosis and they produce haploid spores. So there are some cells of sporophyte which undergo reduction, division to produce haploid spores and these spores germinate to form gametophyte. So again from now this sporophyte reduction, division or meiosis takes place and spores are formed which are haploid and they germinate to form gametophyte. Bryophytes in general are of little economic importance but they are of ecological. This one was ecological, right? Yeah, they are of more ecological importance. They are of little economic importance, but they are more ecological importance. How? They provide food for herbaceous mammals, birds and other animals. That is some mosses. They provide food for herbaceous mammals, birds and other animals. Then species of sphagnum. Sphagnum is a moss and it provides peat that have long been used as a fuel and as packing material for transshipment of living material because of their capacity to hold water. So species of sphagnum, which is a moss, first of all they provide peat which has been used as a fuel for a long time and it also acts as a packing material for transshipment of living material. Why? Because of their capacity to hold water, again hydrocolloids. Then mosses along with lichens are the first organisms to colonize rocks. Mosses along with lichens are the first organism to colonize rocks and hence they are of great ecological importance. They decompose rocks making the substrate suitable for the growth of higher plants. So they decompose rocks basically and make the substrate suitable for the growth of higher plants. Since mosses form dense mats on the soil, they reduce the impact of falling rain and prevent soil erosion. So basically they form dense mats on the soil, right? Green colored dense mats on the soil. So therefore very heavy rain also is pouring down, that is torrential rain. Still the soil erosion will not take place. So they reduce the impact of falling rain and they prevent soil erosion. The bryophytes are divided into liverworts and mosses. So firstly liverworts. Liverworts grow usually in moist and shady habitats where bank of stream, marshy ground, damp soil, bark of trees and deep in woods. So the bank of stream, marshy ground, damp soil, bark of trees and deep in the woods. That is all bryophytes, they mostly grow in moist, damp and shady regions, right? So liverwort example is Markantia. Earlier there was another example apart from Markantia which was Rixia, huh? So you can just remember along with Markantia, Rixia. I'll tell you the difference, just a second. So the liverworts grow usually in moist, shady habitats such as bank of stream, marshy ground, damp soil, bank of trees, and deep in the woods. Plant body of a liverwort is thalloid, that is simple. Example, Markantia. Thallus is dorsiventral and closely oppressed to the substrate. It is so dorsiventral, flattened, and closely oppressed to the substrate. The leafy members have tiny leaf-like appendages in two rows on the stem-like structures, and asexual reproduction takes place by fragmentation of thalli or by formation of specialized structures which are called as gemma. The gemmae are green multicellular asexual buds, and they develop in small receptacles called as gemma cups which are located on the thalli. The gemma become detached from the plant body and germinate to form new individuals. During sexual reproduction, male and female sex organs are produced on either on the same or on the different thalli. So if they are produced on the same thalli, then example is Rixia. If they are produced, that is the during sexual reproduction, if the male and female organs they are produced on different thalli, then example is Markantia. And these are the two examples which you have to remember for liverworts. So the sporophyte is differentiated into a foot, seta and capsule, and after meiosis spores are produced within the capsule. These spores germinate to form free living gametophytes. Let's just revise once the algae part, and then bryophytes again we can do it in the next video, because this is a very big chapter and you have to remember a lot. Okay, so we saw about the Whittaker five kingdom classification, which was proposed in 1969. That is Faunera, Protista, fungi, plantae, animalia. Then earlier in two kingdom classification given by Carolus Linnaeus, all your fungi and few monera and all, they all have cell walls, so therefore there is blue green algae or cyanobacteria. They were all placed in kingdom plantae, but now they are placed in different kingdoms. So in kingdom plantae we are going to study about algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperm and angiosperm. Then there were two systems of classification. First was artificial system of classification, which basically divided, that is, which was kind of given by Carolus Linnaeus and Aristotle in a mix, you can say. So this was the artificial system classification, was the earliest system of classification, and it was basically mainly based on gross morphological or superficial characteristics such as the habit, the color, the shape of the leaf, then androecium structure, uh, so such systems were artificial, and they separated the closely related species on the basis of morphological superficial characteristics. So therefore the artificial system, and plus another reason why artificial system biggest drawback or it was rejected was because artificial system of classification, it gave equal weightage to both the vegetative as well as the sexual characteristics, and this was not acceptable because we know that vegetative characteristics can change even in that is depends on factors which can completely change it. For example, environment, more easily affected by environment. Therefore, against this, the natural system of classification was given by Bentham and Hooker, that is George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker, and both of them in natural system of classification, they based it on ultrastructure, embryology, phytochemistry, anatomy. That is, external features were there, but also internal features were there. At present, phylogenetics classification system based on evolutionary relationship between different organisms is acceptable. What does this say? This says that in a taxon or a category, the organisms which are there, they must have or must belong to a common ancestor. So now we now use information from many other sources to help resolve difficulties in classification. These become more important when there is no supporting fossil evidence. So numerical taxonomy, in numerical taxonomy, a lot of characters are put into the computer and assigned codes, different codes, and these characters later on, hundreds of them, that is when the data is processed, they all can be considered at one time. That is numerical taxonomy. Then cytotaxonomy based on the cell structure, that is cytological information, chromosome number, etc. And chemotaxonomy, that is based on the chemical constituents of the plant to resolve confusions. Then algae, main plant body of algae is haploid. It undergoes haplontic life cycle. Then it undergoes zygotic meiosis, that is directly the zygote, it undergoes meiosis to form spores. There is no sporophyte, or you can say that is in a way the sporophyte is the zygote itself, because it is the only diploid structure and it is very short lived. Therefore majorly the gametophyte is only dominant phase. Then due to dominant gametophyte it is haplontic. Then what else? um, They are cryptogams because vascular tissues are absent. This is also another thing that I missed. Cryptogams because vascular tissue is absent. Then, Then they are chlorophyll bearing, simple thalloid autotrophic, found in both freshwater and marine, that is they are both freshwater and marine organism, found in aquatic. Apart from aquatic, they can be found in moist stone, soil and wood. Then some of them also occur in association with fungi, example lichen, and animals, example on sloth bear. Then their form and size is highly variable, that is colonial volvox and filamentous, ulothrix, pyrogyra, and cladophora. Then a few of the marine forms such as kelps, they are form massive plant bodies, height 100 meter, that is we saw in phaeophyceae or brown algae. Then the algae reproduce by vegetative, asexual and sexual method, that is vegetative reproduction is by fragmentation. We can see that in Spirogyra, that is it breaks into a fragment and each fragment grows into a thallus. Then asexual reproduction is by motile spores, which are zoospores, and the zoospores are also the most common uh, spores or asexual spores which are used in algae or seen in algae, found in algae. They are flagellated, motile, and germination gives new plants. Okay. Sexual reproduction takes place through fusion of two gametes, and these gametes can be flagellated or similar in size, that is isogamous. For example, in Ulothrix, isogamous motile, example Ulothrix and Chlamydomonas, or isogamous non-motile gametes, example Spirogyra. They can be different in size, that is an isogamous, example Eudorina, or they can be the male can be motile and small and the female can be large and non-motile. Example Oogamous, example is Volvox and Fucus. Then this example over here is of Volvox, that is which is colonial. This is the example of Holothrix, which is filamentous from green algae. Then from brown algae, the first one, that is the single leaf type, is Laminaria. The second one is Fucus. Here Fucus should not be written. Fucus is a brown algae. And the third one is Dictyota. Then there is porphyra and polysiphonia. The attached to the substratum is holdfast, then the stalk or stipe, and then the leaf-like part that is frond in Phaeophyceae or brown algae. अच्छा, this was general algae ना, not green algae. तो general algae में तो you can write, sorry. हाँ, algae are useful to man in a variety of ways. So basically, at least half of the total carbon dioxide on Earth is that is carbon dioxide fixation on Earth is done by algae. Why? Because they are photosynthetic in nature. So similarly, that is a lot of dissolved oxygen in our immediate atmosphere is due to photosynthesis, which is done by algae. And then they are of paramount importance. Why? Because they are the primary producers of energy-rich compounds in aquatic for all and they form the basis of food cycle of all aquatic animals, and many species are of algae are edible or used as food, and there are almost 70 species. Among them, some are porphyra, laminaria, and sargassum. Then certain marine brown and red algae produce large amounts of hydrocolloids. And what are hydrocolloids? They are water holding substances. Example, brown algae, one example of brown algae is algin, and one example of red algae is carrageen. Then and they are used commercially. Then agar is one of the commercial products which is produced from Gelidium and Gracilaria. It helps in growing microbes in a petri dish for culture, as well as making ice cream and jelly. Then chlorella is a unicellular alga, and it is rich in proteins, and it is used as a food supplement by space travelers. Along with that, spirulina, which is a cyanobacteria, is also used, I guess. Huh? Then not a cyanobacteria. I don't know whether it's cyanobacteria or not. I guess it is cyanobacteria. The algae are derived into divided into three main classes: Chlorophyceae green algae, Phaeophyceae brown algae, and Rhodophyceae red algae. Then chlorophyceae, they are commonly called as green algae. Their body can be unicellular, colonial, or filamentous. Then they are usually grass green in color because they have the pigment chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. Then their pigments are definite, localized in definite chloroplast. These chloroplast may be that is cup shaped, disc shaped, discoid, plate like, spiral, reticulate, or ribbon shaped in Spirogyra. Then most of the members have one or more storage bodies. These storage bodies are called as pyrenoids, and these storage bodies are located in chloroplast, and they store protein and starch. Then some algae may store food in the form of oil droplets. Then green algae usually have a cell wall, which is that is outer layer of the cell wall is made up of cellulose, and inner one is made up of pectose. I just said the opposite thing, I'm so sorry. That is, the outer layer is made up of pectose and inner layer is made up of cellulose. Outer layer of the cell wall of green algae or chlorophyceae is made up of pectose, and inner wall is made up of cellulose. Inner layer is made up of cellulose. Vegetative reproduction mainly takes place by fragmentation. Asexual reproduction by zoospores, which are produced in zoosporangia. Then sexual reproduction shows variation. That is isogamous and isogamous oogamous. Isogamous is Olothrix, Cladophora, Chlamydomonas, that is all motile and isogamous. Then non-motile isogamous, only one, that is Spirogyra. Then an isogamous Eudorina, and oogamous is your Volvox. And Cara is monoecious. Okay. Phaeophyceae or brown algae, they are primarily found in marine habitats. They show a great variation in size and form. That is, they can be simple or branched, or they can be filamentous. Filamentous example is ectocarpus, or they can be very, very profusely branched. Example is kelp. They can range to a height of 100 meters, which is basically found in kelps. Then they possess chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, xanthophylls, and carotenoids. That is, they can be olive green in color, but they can range from olive green in color to various shades of brown, and the color brown comes because of the xanthophyll pigment, which is called as fucoxanthin. Then food is stored in the form of complex carbohydrate, which may be stored in the form of laminarin and laminarin or mannitol. So in the first case, it was protein and starch. Second case, laminarin and or mannitol. Third case, in rhodophyceae or red algae, you will see fluoridine starch. Okay. So now the vegetative cells, they have a cellulosic cell wall, but also an outer gelatinous sheet made up of algin. Then protoplast contains, in addition to plastid, a centrally located vacuole and nucleus. So in Phaeophyceae or brown algae, that is the protoplast, it contains plastids, but along with that, it also contains a centrally located vacuole and the nucleus. Plant body is usually attached to substratum by holdfast. Then a stalk or stipe is there, and then a leaf-like photosynthetic organ, that is frond, is present. In Phaeophyceae or brown algae. So vegetative reproduction takes place by fragmentation. Asexual reproduction takes place by biflagellate motile zoospores, and they are pear shaped and they have two unequal laterally attached flagella. So in green algae there were two flagella, but both of them were apically attached and they were same or equal in size, whereas in Phaeophyceae or brown algae we have biflagellate zoospores which are motile, but they have two unequal laterally attached flagella and pear shaped. Sexual reproduction can be isogamous, oogamous, and isogamous. Union of gametes may take place in water or within the oogonium, that is the oogamous species. The gametes are pyriform or pear-shaped and they have two laterally attached flagella. The common forms are ectocarpus. Okay, so ectocarpus itself. So all of them over here should be haplontic, but ectocarpus is haplodiplontic and fucus is diplontic. Fucus is oogamous and it shows diplontic life cycle. Okay, we'll do next in the year. Thank you.